You're on.
Barnz.
You guys are live.
Hi, we're live. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Panic.
I know, right? Oh my God. It's always with live, you guys. I'm always like, but maybe I'll talk a little for more people to join us. That'll be my deflector.
We already had a comment. Someone said,
amazing.
So awesome. Both of my kids are adopted, and I know that baby wearing helped us bond.
Oh, okay, we're done.
Done. Thank you.
Thanks.
And good night.
Hey, so Christina here, and I am here with Ben Barnz, who just released this awesome book called We, an Adoption and a Memoir. And I just finished it, and I'm not going to do any spoilers, but I am just going to say that I might cry during the interview because I am an empath. And
an empath.
An empath.
Nice.
And a witch.
Yeah.
And I cry.
Yeah.
So I may cry, I'm just letting you know. But, so we are here.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I guess you and your book.
Yes.
We didn't have a copy of the book, so I printed it out so you can see it. I also make sure you check the link in comments. Whitney is going to post the link so you can buy it over on Amazon because it is available. And speaking of the link in comments, go ahead and ask us your adoption questions now if you want Ben to answer any questions during the course of the live.
I will answer anything.
Amazing. And he will, and he'll be honest. I can already tell.
Yeah.
And we will be doing a giveaway. So if you comment in the comment section, either with a question or anything about your adoption experience, we will send you a baby carrier, our new Omni 360, as well as a copy of Ben's book, because we believe that one of the best ways for any parent to bond, adoptive, birth, non-adoptive, whatever, is through baby wearing. So, so there we go.
Agreed.
Yay!
Yeah. Also, your Ergobaby is amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
it kind of makes me want to have a baby.
Again?
Yeah.
You already have two.
Yeah, I can't do it again.
Okay, fair enough. And you're kind of on the, well, we'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, don't age me yet.
I was only going to age your children. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
What led you to write this memoir?
So, let's see. We have two children, my husband and I. Both are adopted. They are, I'm just going to age myself now because there's no way not to. Our oldest one is 17. Our youngest, we have a girl who's 17 and a boy who is 15.
Okay.
And just a quick synopsis of We, which is...
No spoilers.
No spoilers. But Zelda was born September 8th, 2001. September 11th happened 3 days later. Mm-hmm. September 12th, her biological father, who we had not heard anything from, nor had the biological mother, stepped forward and said he was going to contest the adoption. So we spent the next 6 months while raising and wearing our child, our daughter, in litigation, not knowing if we were going to be able to keep her. So, long story short, a few years later I started writing the book, but it was really raw and too close still, so I stopped. And about 4 years ago I started writing it again.
Okay.
And I think, as we all know, there's just these stories, like something sometimes in you where you're like, I just have to get this story out. I also think now that it's out, I realize part of it was... I wanted it for our children to know the story, especially my daughter, to know her story of her adoption and what happened and how much she was loved by so many people. And then when I was writing it, I also realized it had to sort of deal with who I was coming to terms with being gay. And so it goes back in time to the 1980s and growing up in New York City during the height of AIDS.
Well, and I think so much just being a parent in general, no matter what route you go, kind of forces that self-reflection.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
You know, really like knowing what your triggers and your narrative is.
Yes.
Before we kind of...
Yes. It's interesting, I just did a podcast yesterday called If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother.
Oh, and wow. We're going to check that out.
It's really funny, right?
That's so good.
But
we'll find that link.
Yeah. And I think the one is the number one. But
okay.
We were discussing how I feel very strongly, especially having adopted children, but I think it doesn't matter, that your child somehow finds you because that person for who, whatever it is, really brings up your stuff.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
and it really makes you have to, and I think they're there and you're there for them for really specific reasons.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about why you and your partner decided on the adoption route, and maybe a little bit of, I know you talk about it a little bit in the book, but why did you decide the adoption route for you? And maybe why private versus foster? Because I know you touched on that a little bit as well.
When we started thinking about adoption, this was a long time ago now.
Yourself again?
Yeah, like, I mean, so we started thinking about it, our daughter's 17, right? So 18 or 19 years ago.
Right.
So this was pre a lot of gay, like, things that have changed.
Right. I mean,
so,
you can, here in LA, you can go to the Gay and Lesbian Center and take a class on adoption.
Exactly. So there were very few, the options were sort of few and far between, and then there were very few same-sex, especially male partners adopting or choosing to have families at that time.
Right.
So, and for us, it was really important to us to have babies. So, though the foster system is incredible, and I have many very close friends that have adopted through foster, the baby was really important to me. It was really something I wanted and needed. So we did adoption.
Okay.
And then when you looked around, especially at that time, our options were limited of like who we could go to. So we found a lawyer who was incredible here in Los Angeles. And we chose adoption because growing up with having to come to terms with being gay and sort of shame about that at the time, I really wanted no secrets. So it was really important to me that if and when our children choose to meet their biological parents, which they haven't yet, but might at some point, I always want to know that it's available.
Yeah. That line really stuck out to me, and that'll lead us kind of the next question I want to ask about open adoption. You have a line, and I'm going to bungle it, but something about, secrets lead to guilt, which leads to shame.
Yes.
And that really resonated for me. That was very powerful. But can you talk a little bit about the open adoption and how that's worked for your family?
So, for those of you who don't know this, so there's closed adoptions, which the adoption happens and everything is sealed off, and there's sort of no communication between.
And that was more traditional.
That was more traditional.
When, we were young.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
So, in the 60s and 70s, a lot of children who were adopted were mostly closed adoptions.
Yes, and I think even back then there was a lot of, shame attached to having to adopt, or why the person was, choosing to place their child, or all of that. And adoption also has come so far, right? So, I kind of forgot your question.
Open adoption.
Yeah. So, so it was just really important to us that I also just think if a birth mother chooses to make this huge decision to give a life to somebody else, that I personally need to honor that.
Right.
They're extraordinary women. So it was important to me, and it's interesting. We have other people with adopted children who their children really need or want to get in touch with or meet those people. Our children thus far don't have that. I think it's all internal. So, but it might change, and I want that road to be absolutely clear for them.
Right. I'm going to interrupt for a moment and introduce the disembodied voice that is Whitney, who is manning the camera or humaning the camera. And take a pause here. Are there any questions or comments that have come through that we should address for Ben?
So far, no questions, just feedback that this is amazing and wonderful, and thank you.
Thank you.
Love it.
Ask me anything if you want to know anything.
So tell us about some of the challenges and joys of the adoption process. Again, no spoilers.
No spoilers.
Get the book.
I think, here's what I think was the sort of most revelatory thing for adopting. When you go through an adoption, or at least the way we went through it, but I think it's for most people, you have to answer so many questions about who you are, why you're doing this, what you want, what you and your partner, how you are going to raise this child. You really have to get into it before it happens.
Yeah.
And I remember doing it at the time, and I was like, honestly, everybody should have to answer these questions because I actually think it would stop a lot of people from having kids. And I don't think everyone has to have children, but I think there is this pressure, societal expectation that like if you're able to have a kid, you better have one.
Right?
And I do think it would. I think it was a really I don't know. It was kind of profound to have to sort of grapple with
a friend
these
who
questions.
did the foster adoption kind of
Yeah.
said the same thing, and I said, you know, how I wish I'd have done that. I'd have done that self-reflection because kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Any parent, whether adoptive or not, biological, I did give birth to my daughter. Any parent is that your story and your narrative is going to be right there.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. You know, those patterns and those things from your childhood come up. And that opportunity to kind of dive into that and explore it beforehand is actually, I think, a beautiful gift.
It's such a gift. And also, I think it's such a gift to have to communicate all of your hesitations, fears, questions, excitement with, if you have a partner, with your partner, so that your partner can be like, wait, what? Like, it really made us sort of have to dig into some stuff, which I think ultimately has made us, I don't know, better parents, but like as a more, and also just as a, like our unit is pretty strong, I think, because of doing that work previously.
No, I think that's amazing. That's definitely a gift. So
the challenge is you have to read the book because the challenges were, you know, as I said, the birth father stepped forward, and that was complicated for a little bit. But
so tell us a little bit. You know, you mentioned actually wanting to have infants, and you know, I mentioned about baby wearing. It doesn't have to be baby wearing specific, but you know, that infant period is crucial for bonding.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are times when, you know, I have a friend who adopted an 8-month-old or another friend who adopted a 3-year-old, and there are obviously still things you can do, but tell us kind of about what your bonding experience was with your children.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was pre-Ergobaby, so sadly we were not able to wear.
I know, it really was. We were
really
joking that, you know, when you wrote this, it was 2001. Ergobaby wasn't even started till 2003.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Bjorn in your memoir. It's okay.
Yeah.
Karen Frost, the woman who started Ergobaby, she wore a Bjorn.
Yeah, of course.
So
it was all there was.
All there was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd still say that was pretty amazing that you had, you know, the baby wearing experience.
Yes.
You know?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I have to say, I would go on. I went on a walk with her every day.
Yeah.
So wearing her, and it was such a. I remember the first time where you're able to turn them out, and you can see them sort of looking out into the world, which is a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
So we definitely did that, and then we also had a co-sleeper, which I think people still do.
Yeah,
do you know
absolutely.
What that is?
I know it's the
you sort of attach it to your bed.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was very impressed with that, I have to say.
You were?
I was like, oh, they have a co-sleeper. Wow, they were so ahead of the curve back then.
It was really
well, not
good.
really though. I mean, for millions of years. People.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
But it's the thing that's amazing about co-sleeper, if you don't know, is it attaches to your bed, so it's open and then it's closed on 3 sides. So
the baby has their own space.
Yes.
But you're able to
get respond. To her or him whenever you need to or want. So so they're close and they feel you and they can sense your proximity.
Right.
But I also really love and honor my bed space, and I personally was not like, I don't want you in my bed, but I really want you close by.
Exactly.
So that was a huge thing. And I think we also just kind of hunkered down in our house a lot. I don't think we went out tons. We spent so much time. And bath time, too, was a huge... You mentioned in the book the bath ritual. Yeah.
You know, that
I loved it.
That's a really special... I mean, those rituals and those traditions and those things that you start are really profound. Yeah. And they all, you know, kind of add up to the attachment process. And I'll mention here, we'll put a couple links in the comments. We do have other articles about adoption and other people's stories, and... kind of how baby wearing was one way to really facilitate that adoption bond.
I have a quick question.
Oh, yeah.
How old were your kids when you adopted them? Were they?
We were in the hospital for both.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So both of them were born here in Los Angeles at Good Samaritan Hospital.
I was gonna say Good Sam.
Did you?
Yeah. I didn't. No, I was at Cedar. I gave birth at Cedars, but I have a lot of friends who.
Amazing hospital.
Yeah, I mean it's right here.
Yes. Anyway, so we were at both births.
Amazing.
Yeah. Crazy experience.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about a little bit in the book about how you were able to cut the umbilical cord.
Yes.
And, I mean, do you think being at the birth helped with kind of really...
Well, so here's the... So, our birth mother did not want us in the room. She was very... But interestingly now, post-it, she was like, that's the one thing I wish I had changed at the time. But she didn't want it at the time, and that was her... But Good Sam was amazing because they gave us basically 2 rooms, so we were right across the hall from her.
Okay.
So as soon as our daughter was born, she basically came running into us, and they were kind enough to sort of leave the umbilical cord longer, so we were able to cut it again.
And that was with your daughter?
That was with our daughter, and then with our son, different biological parents, we were in the room for his birth.
Okay.
Which, being a gay man and not around a female body a lot, is an extraordinary... beautiful and also just shocking, like just natural.
I mean, I have to say, it's shocking sometimes for women.
Yeah.
Who, it's one of those things where, I mean, that's one piece of advice I tell pregnant women is watch birth stories, because I feel like that's something societally we don't encourage.
Yeah.
And birth is amazing and beautiful. And, I've even gotten in trouble from Ergobaby for posting some pretty graphic births, but I think it's important. I really do.
You're totally right.
I think it's really important, and same thing
so
with
smart.
With breastfeeding, which you obviously can't talk
about.
I tried.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
Anyway, come on, let John.
I was joking the other day. I was like, well, moms have boobs, dads have baby carriers. You know, that's how dads can really, the non-gestational parent, how they really can have that skin to skin and get that bonding experience.
Yeah.
So
I used to always nap with her on me. So
that skin to skin is amazing. So tell us about your children now. What can you tell us about? I mean, teenagers I know, but can you tell us about?
She is 17 and he is 15. They are, it's funny talking about your kids without sounding like, kind of douchey, but, they're really kind of amazing. They're lovely together. Something we also did bonding-wise just as adoptive families, which I don't know. But we went on trips a lot, like during the summer where it was just us, because I actually think that's sort of a crucial time for kids to have to be together. And even if they hate it, they kind of love it.
Absolutely.
So she's a junior. He's a freshman in high school. She is an extraordinary writer of her own.
Yeah, you published one of her poems.
Yeah, that she wrote when she was like 7.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Amazing.
Yeah, a little obnoxious. I was like, yeah, she's an amazing writer. Really quick story I'll just share with you, which is she, about a year ago, had this idea, and she writes stories a lot, and she had this idea. She's frustrated that she doesn't see herself as a teenager represented anywhere, honestly, and authentically.
Okay.
And my husband and I are in TV and film, so we said, why don't we make a TV show? So we created this whole TV idea with her, and she created a pitch with my husband.
Oh, I love
and we went into HBO thinking, what a great exercise in putting yourself out there. And
learning to tell your
story. And they bought it. And so she wrote a pilot for HBO, which is crazy.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. So that's cool.
Wow, it's really cool.
Yeah, and we're sort of waiting to see what happens with that at this moment. And then our son, who's 15, is a ridiculously talented artist.
Oh, nice.
Oil paints, like crazy talented. Wow. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're kind of really interesting. They're interesting humans. I have to say, you have an 8-year-old, which is such a lovely, delicious
such a great age.
And then when they become 15 and 17, they start becoming people, and it's sort of a fun thing to see that.
I mean, you can see at 8, you can see that
pieces.
Pieces of it.
Yeah.
It's really fun working at Ergobaby to kind of get to talk about this, like, because when you're in the baby, because my favorite mantra as a parent is "this too shall pass." And I think about like those nights. I mean, we did a sleep live a couple weeks ago, and I was like, parents, this too shall pass. And it's like, you think, we talk about the co-sleeper, but those sleepless nights,
it's exhausting.
They're exhausting, but they're so
far in the past
now. My daughter's only 8. They're not really that far in the past. But I love actually being able to have people on and talk about older children, because so many of our viewers are like, in the thick of it.
It's interesting because my sisters I have 2 older sisters, and my older sister, when she had teenagers, were like, just you wait, because if you think this is hard, like, and I was like, but it just gets more complicated just because there's social and emotional, and
absolutely,
it's amazing how much they need you there on different levels at different times.
Right. Which, going back to that self-reflection, is so amazing to have that as an adoptive. I mean, I feel like someone should write a book about that. The questions any parent should ask themselves before they become a parent.
I know. It's funny because when I first started writing the book, I actually had put all the questions in the book.
Oh.
Because I thought it was going to be sort of almost a more like how to adopt book. But I think it is, yes, you're right. Someone should do that.
Hint.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint. Hint, hint.
Note to self.
So before we kind of wrap up, I have a final question. Okay.
I have questions.
Okay. You want to jump? Go. Disembodied voice Whitney, please jump
in. Might be, going to this one, but just if you could talk a little bit without giving spoilers to your book, like a greatest challenge, but also a greatest joy of being an adoptive parent. You're on the spot.
Let's see. I don't know. It's funny. It's funny, right? Because I clearly am an adoptive parent. But I don't know if it's the adoptive parent or if it's just being a parent. I don't know that there's...
It's a universal parent
Yes, I don't
thing.
think that there's... I mean, I guess with adoptive parents, there are things where our kids will do something and I'll be like, where did that come?
Right.
So there are those moments, which is exciting and surprising. So I guess that is something that's different than... But I think even probably with you,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Where did that come from?
Right?
Absolutely.
Because, like, there's all these weird gene things. So your great-grandfather might have put something in there that you're like, what the?
Exactly.
So I think that's sort of a...
I mean, we did talk about that, a little bit about, someone said, like, oh, wolf adoption, you don't know what you're going to get. And I'm like, with the birth, you kind of don't know what you're going to get either.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
it really is.
It's
like,
a crapshoot.
Putting the, I love it. You're like, it's a crapshoot. I'm like, putting it out to the universe.
I know. Yours is much more joyful.
Well, just embracing.
It's the same thing.
It's exactly, and that was actually one of my other parenting mantras. Either let go of expectations or lower your expectations. Really, just letting go of what your expectations are.
Yes.
Because you don't know.
Yes.
And embracing kind of what's in front of you.
I think also the really hard thing about parenting is you are so, like you said, in the moment.
Right.
That sometimes I have to remind myself that, like, at some point, they're going to be 25 and out in the world.
Right.
And they're going to get there.
Right.
So just...
Well, like, co-sleeping is a perfect
relax.
Example. I'm like, my daughter is not going to still be sleeping with me when she's in college.
Yeah. Yes.
It's okay
One
if
hopes.
she needs... Fair enough. But it's okay if she needs this right now because she is a tiny human who can't dress, feed, or clothe herself. So why wouldn't she want to be close to me? So it's that same idea of... And then I guess that's why I loved asking you about, because like I said, we usually are talking about that baby period. It's kind of amazing to come back and be like, they grow up and they're amazing.
They are amazing.
It's good. So let's wrap up, I guess, with this question.
Okay.
What's the one piece of advice you would give someone embarking on an adoption? Are there any, considerations that surprised you or things that... I mean, I know you can't prepare for everything, especially read the book. But what would you give... What piece of advice would you give prospective adoptive parents?
I think... I guess I would say what I said earlier, which is just answer the questions and go through, really I think the thing that's interesting is if you got to the place where you want to adopt a kid, you really want a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would say really answer those questions and dig in and figure out exactly what... this is what I have to say. I think you have to figure out exactly what it is that's right for you and your family. Whether that's through foster and you're cool with having some where you don't know, which is amazing, or if you need a baby, and then just be open to what comes to you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. So any last comments or anything that we want to throw in before we wrap?
I guess I'll have one last question for us, which is just that I have friends who've had a hard time adopting. The process was just difficult for them for a variety of reasons. And I know it sounds like maybe kind of your first time through, you were able to adopt, but do you have friends or have heard other stories, or just what might you say to someone who's had more struggles, as they adopt?
It's interesting because I got a Facebook message from a woman who had read my book, who I didn't know, who shared her story of adoption with me and said, I really appreciate you writing this. It took her like 7 to 8 times to get to her child. And she was like, but now I have this baby, and it's the same thing where I do feel like if it is important to you to help raise a human in this world, so you want that child, you don't know where that person's coming from, and I think just have patience and know that your child is coming, but it might just not be the way you think it is, or at the time.
I mean, that's sort of life advice, really.
Right?
I mean, being open to what's coming, and things may not work out on your time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I, again, have to remember as a parent.
Same.
Regardless, whether...
And as a person.
Exactly.
As myself.
Exactly. I mean, so it's kind of that same, that same sort of like, it's going to happen when it's meant to happen.
Yeah.
And here are the lessons we're going to learn from it.
Yeah. And then also there's reasons that kid doesn't find you. That you don't know, but it's just not the time.
Trust the process.
Yes, trust the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you've commented below, we will keep the giveaway open for another 24 hours. So we'll close it on Thursday. When will we close it?
Noon.
Thursday, noon Pacific time. So comment away and share the video until then, and you'll be entered to win a copy of Ben's book, as well as the Ergobaby Omni 360 baby carrier, which does it all. You can wear it from birth, so if you are lucky enough to have been at your child's birth, you can use it right away, but it also goes up to 45 pounds, so you can use it until the child is 3 or 4. Pretty much. I put my daughter in it the other day.
Really?
She's...
You
8.
did?
Yeah, I did. I put her on my back, and she weighs 42 pounds.
Oh.
And, she's a kid now, so she was able to just climb on, and I just put her on. But
that's funny.
I mean, I did it.
Yeah, let's go shopping.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I have it. It's in my earthquake kit. The baby carrier's in
smart.
my earthquake kit, because...
That's smart.
Hello, Californians, if something were ever to happen, and I needed to,
That's so smart of you.
Californians, put a baby carrier in an earthquake kit.
Really good note to self.
You could carry your 15-year-old, maybe.
He carried me,
yeah,
probably.
Exactly. Anyway, well, thank you so much
for
joining
having me.
us.
I really appreciate it.
We're excited. And everyone comment and share. And
thank you.
And the link to get the book is going to be in the comments. Oh, it's there already. Magic. Whitney is magic.
Thank you, Whitney.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.